NBC has announced plans for a spin-off to the hit series Suits, which will be set in Los Angeles. It will focus on Meghan Markle's character's struggle to balance her legal career while also caring for an unemployed immigrant.
She's still experiencing issues after leaving Meghan's employment. And the way she treated me, she says, of Meghan can only be described as dehumanizing. She also said, you only hear about the professional positions, but the household staff departures are much higher.
Oprah, they're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby was gonna be. They're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby's gonna be. I'm like, that's not racist. Because even black people want to know.
They thought the Meghan Markle story was finished, that the fairy tale had faded into exile and silence. But then, boom, Colin Jost lit a cultural firestorm on live television, and suddenly, everything she worked to hide came crashing back into the public eye. This wasn't just a punchline on Saturday Night Live. It was a digital detonation, a joke so sharp and so loaded that it cracked open the pristine surface of Meghan's brand like a shell. And out came everything. The Yacht Girl rumors, the Epstein whispers, the high society connections that her team worked for years to bury, dragged from the shadows and thrown straight into the global spotlight with no script, no filter, and absolutely no mercy. One smirk from Colin and the internet exploded. TikTok sleuths dissecting every frame, Twitter threads uncovering old photos, and even mainstream outlets, once loyal to Meghan's victim narrative, now calling her out as the ultimate Hollywood illusionist. This wasn't backlash, it was a reckoning. A perfectly timed cultural moment where comedy turned to consequence, where satire turned to scrutiny, and where Meghan, once the symbol of royal rebellion, suddenly stood exposed as a calculated brand built on vanishing timelines and curated chaos. And here's the twist. This isn't just a gossip cycle, it's a cultural shift. Because when you can't sue a punchline, when you can't PR spin your way out of memes, and when silence speaks louder than any carefully worded statement, the mask starts to slip. So if you thought Meghan Markle was untouchable, think again, because this time, the storm isn't coming, it's already here. It started with a smirk, but what followed was a cultural earthquake. Colin Jost didn't just make a joke, he cracked open a vault. Apparently, one of the terms in Trump's new UK trade deal is that we send Meghan Markle back, he said. Eyes locked on the camera, voice cool, delivery deadly. But only if she deletes her entire Instagram again. The audience roared. Social media erupted. And somewhere in Montecito, sources say Meghan Markle nearly shattered a wine glass. Because this wasn't a cheap jab or a lazy dig. This was a targeted shot from one of the most watched stages in the world, a late-night comedy nuke aimed not at her role, her race, or her marriage, but at the heart of her brand. Colin wasn't mocking the victim. He was calling out the marketer, the strategist, the woman who turned her life into a perfectly filtered narrative and sold it to the world as truth. And that punchline, wrapped in sarcasm, carried something more dangerous than hate. It carried credibility. Because for the first time, the mainstream wasn't mocking Meghan's drama, it was mocking her design. It was laughing at the construction of her entire public image. And behind every laugh was a deeper question. What is Meghan Markle actually hiding? The punchline was still echoing when the internet went full detective mode. Within hours, old rumors reignited like dry brush in wildfire. Grainy but undeniable photos began circulating. Sun-drenched yachts, champagne flutes in hand, powerful. Men in designer linen. And at the center of it all, a woman who looked suspiciously like Meghan Markle, long before the royal titles, before the Netflix deals, before the charity speeches. And this wasn't some blurry Bigfoot nonsense. No, this was high-resolution evidence with real context, real metadata, and real implications. Reddit sleuths cross-referenced jewelry, angles of sunlight, body posture, even the stitching on her swimsuit. TikTokers zoomed in, reversed, color-corrected, enhanced. Twitter threads broke down timelines, matched guest lists, matched skin tone. And the conclusion? Let's just say it didn't look like some innocent vacation. It looked like access. It looked like leverage. It looked like someone who had been in the right rooms long before the world ever knew her name. And that's when people started asking the uncomfortable questions again. Did Meghan really meet Harry by chance? Or was this all part of a long, elite climb crafted by charm, social connections, and untraceable whispers? What made this different from every rumor before wasn't just the photos, it was the timing. Because these weren't snapshots from some college spring break in 2004. These lined up with Meghan's early Suits era, the exact moment she was pushing a wellness influencer image online, green juice in hand, yoga mat by the pool, hashtags about self-love and purpose, carefully distancing herself from anything that didn't scream classy, clean, and curated. And that's the problem. The version of Meghan we were sold, compassionate Duchess, misunderstood outsider, victim of an ancient monarchy, suddenly didn't match the version appearing in those yacht party shots. It wasn't just an image clash, it was a timeline rupture. Because if those photos were real and they aligned with her rise in Hollywood, then the fairy tale starts to look a lot less magical and a lot more manufactured. It wasn't fate. It wasn't love at first sight. It was PR, networking, strategy, and Colin Jost, with a single smirk, exposed all of it, not with documents or legal claims, but with humor. And when a joke hits harder than a lawsuit, you know the truth is catching up fast. The deeper cut wasn't in what Colin said, it was in what he implied. Because the moment he joked about Meghan being part of a trade deal, the internet didn't laugh just because it was outrageous. They laughed because it felt plausible. And that's what terrified Meghan's camp. For years, her defenders could shut down critics by crying racism, misogyny, or press bias. But now, the narrative has changed. This wasn't a journalist digging through her past. This was pop culture, turning the tables. Comedy had pierced the royal armor, and now even Meghan's silence started to feel like a confession. No denial, no lawsuit, no carefully worded Instagram post about healing, just silence. And in a world driven by headlines and reactions, silence is no longer grace, it's guilt. Even her most loyal supporters didn't know what to say. Because how do you defend yacht party whispers when your entire brand is built on struggle, service, and sincerity? You don't. You hide. You wait. But the internet doesn't wait. It digs. It speculates. It connects the dots you hoped were erased. And Meghan? She's suddenly finding out that when the mask slips, it doesn't fall quietly. It crashes. The fallout didn't stop with old photos. It escalated into a full-blown identity crisis. TikTok exploded with side-by-side comparisons of Meghan then and Meghan now. Influencer reels traced her transformation frame by frame, from briefcase girl to Duchess to startup founder, and none of it looked accidental. Twitter threads dissected every public pivot, every vanishing friend, every PR flip that wiped away the past like it never existed. Even outlets that once treated her like royalty's rebel heroine began using words like over-curated, inconsistent, and worst of all, inauthentic. Because it wasn't just that Meghan had a glamorous past. It's that she buried it, rewrote it, and went after anyone who dared to dig it up. And that's the scandal. Not the yacht, not the photos, the cover-up, the deliberate reinvention, the weaponized brand management that turned scrutiny into slander and truth into trauma. But now the internet is awake. And Meghan's biggest fear isn't hate, it's humiliation. Because hate can be spun. But mockery? Mockery sticks. Colin didn't just challenge her story, he made her the punchline. And the moment the world starts laughing, the illusion isn't just cracked. It's shattered. Colin's joke was the match, but what came next was an inferno. Meghan's alleged reaction? Fury. Not frustration, not annoyance, pure rage. Insiders say she was livid, frantically calling media contacts, begging them to shift the focus to her charity work, her brand deals, her empowerment campaigns, anything but the resurfaced photos. But it was too late. TikTok was already dissecting her past like a true crime case. Instagram flooded with memes. YouTube flooded with reaction videos. And worst of all, the clips of Colin's punchline went viral across every continent. The damage wasn't just done. It was global, uncontainable, and permanent. You can delete a post, but you can't untrend. Meghan couldn't sue a punchline. She couldn't censor a meme. She couldn't scrub 1,000 creators all drawing the same conclusion, that the fairy tale was fiction, the Duchess was a disguise, and the internet had receipts. And through it all, Harry's face stayed glued beside hers in every headline, every thumbnail, every whisper of scandal. But while Meghan was raging, Harry, according to insiders, was retreating, quiet, distant, absent, and now even that silence is raising alarms. Because when the perfect royal love story starts to fracture on camera, you can bet it's collapsing behind the scenes, too. Hollywood doesn't forget, and right now, it's remembering everything. Executives are whispering, PR firms are hesitating, and Meghan Markle, the woman who once had studios lining up for partnerships, panels, and prestige deals, is suddenly being labeled a liability. Not because she's controversial, but because she's uncontrollable. And in Hollywood, that's worse. Her name, once floated for brand ambassadorships and global speaking events, is quietly disappearing from those rooms. Not because she lost relevance, but because she brings risk. And the industry knows the game. If the internet smells blood, brands stay silent. No one wants to be the next sponsor dragged into a viral scandal, especially not one tied to yacht parties, deleted histories, and a crumbling royal fantasy. What Colin Jost did with one joke wasn't just reopen a rumor. He exposed the fragility of Meghan's entire image. No matter how many Netflix documentaries she releases, how many healing speeches she posts, how many Instagram quotes she drops about self-worth, none of that matters if one photo, one meme, one punchline can undo it all. And now, behind the scenes, Meghan's team isn't strategizing, they're scrambling. Because once Hollywood starts ghosting you, it's not a brand pause, it's a brand funeral. This was never just about a yacht photo. This was about the eraser, the quiet deletion of an entire identity. Meghan didn't just rewrite her past. She buried it, censored it, threatened anyone who mentioned it, and rebuilt a version of herself. So polished, so precise, that even slight cracks felt like betrayal. But the problem with lies dressed up as branding is that eventually, the timelines don't match. The stories clash. The friends vanish. And when the internet starts remembering what the PR machine tried to erase, the whole operation turns fragile. People aren't mad that Meghan had a glamorous past. They're mad she pretended it didn't exist. That anyone who asked questions was labeled toxic, misogynistic, racist. That she weaponized her struggle as a shield against scrutiny. And now the shield is gone. The real scandal isn't the yacht. It's the cover-up, the calculated silence, the years of gaslighting an audience that's now fully awake. Meghan built her image on being misunderstood, but now, people understand all too well. And with every new clip, every resurfaced detail, every late-night joke that hits a little too hard, the public isn't turning on Meghan out of hate. They're turning because they feel fooled. Because they were sold authenticity and got performance. Sold royalty and got reality TV. And when that illusion breaks, you don't just lose control of the story. You lose the audience. Permanently. So here we are. No more smoke. No more mirrors. Just Meghan Markle standing in the wreckage of a brand built on selective truth, polished narrative, and vanishing receipts. One joke lit the fuse, but the explosion came from everything buried. Beneath, the photos, the silence, the erased friendships, the redacted timelines, and the ruthless obsession with control. This isn't backlash. This is consequence. The internet isn't just laughing, it's digging. And Meghan's team can't spin fast enough to cover the cracks because now, it's not just the tabloids or the trolls. It's regular people, podcasters, creators, commentators, finally putting the pieces together and realizing the Duchess may not be a victim of misrepresentation, but the architect of it. The myth is crumbling. The spotlight is burning. And the story? It's no longer hers to control. Because when you spend years running from the truth, there's one thing you can never outrun: the receipts. And in 2025, the internet never forgets.